Alrighty, so I realized that I've never actually filmed my local trails, and part of that is because I look kind of ridiculous because I film with a chin mount, so I have to wear a full face helmet to film anything, which usually is fine, but just to film some local trails, I look absolutely ridiculous. That being said, the plan for today is just to kind of talk about some stuff, show off my local trails. I figure the best place to start is continuing with that GoPro mount. So I switched to a chin mount a little while back, and also we're coming up to a bit of downhill stretch up here. So I switched to the chin mount a while back, and I switched from a chest mount because I found that the chest mount just flopped about way too much for me, and even with hyper smooth and everything on, I couldn't really get the greatest video. Also, I could never find an angle that looked good, and now with this I don't need hyper smooth anymore, so I can film on super wide, and that has been a game changer for me because you can really get more of a perspective on the trails I'm riding. Anyway, so that's what I did. And I actually 3D printed the mount instead of buying it. I printed it at my local library. Pretty much any decently sized city will have a library almost always with a 3D printer. So I 3D printed this mount for, I think, 4 cents instead of about 25 bucks. And this little 3D printed piece of plastic has served me very well throughout, well, I haven't had it that long, but about just over half a year. I got it a little bit before my major Bryce crash. Gotta turn around because there's some fun stuff going this way. And this thing survived the Bryce crash. If you saw that video, you saw the helmet was shattered, but this thing, it was fine. It also survived my crash at Red Rock Creek, which also wasn't a super fun crash, so kind of amazing that it survived. And if it ever does break, you know, I go back and I spend another 4 cents to get another one. Anyway, let's go this way now. These are my local trails. These trails are legal. Later on, I'll show you some of the not so legal ones. Oh, someone moved that. All right, whatever. Whee! At any rate, these trails are legal. Help build them all. Help build all of the trails that I'm going to show. And was the primary feature builder for just about all of these trails. So, what else was there to talk about? my watch. I've talked about it kind of in passing in the past, but this is the Apple Watch Ultra. I really love it. It's perfect for me in mountain biking and everything, and all the other extreme sports that I do, because it can just tank pretty much anything that I'm gonna throw at it. In addition, it has crash detection, which is really beneficial for me. That actually went off at Ride Rock Creek. So if I was riding alone and got unconscious or something, it's nice to know that that'll end up working. Definitely on the pricier side. These are the inside loops, by the way. It's kind of unclear whether or not these are legal, but it's going to start off with a rock garden that I'm going to need to concentrate for. Anyway, like I was saying, the watch, it's definitely on the pricey side. It's, in my opinion, worth it for the type of things that I do. But that is definitely personal financial choices there. So it's gotten overgrown. Oh my God, look at that thing. Yeesh. So that's about all I have on the watch. Here we go. Another little downhill. Then we'll do this loop backwards, because there's some fun stuff going that way too. Backing up and going the other way on the inside loop. Got a little hip. There we go. So the other thing I wanted to talk about is the crash. I realized I never really gave an update on how everything's been going since over half a year ago now, which is kind of crazy. Feels like yesterday. But at this point, I figure I'm about ready to tell the entire story of that. But first, let's do this little downhill. There's this little log jump, which used to be much nicer. Oh, Jesus. That is pretty defunct now. Alright, this is always a battle. Going up this rock garden. And I picked a terrible line. Whoo-wee. Well, now at least maybe you can see a bit more on camera how crazy this rock garden is. But like I said, this inner loop is kind of unclear whether it's legal or not. It's definitely more mountain bike focused, whereas the outer loop is more hiker focused, but it has a couple of mountain bike features and a decent sized downhill on it. But I think that this is about it for the legal local trails. I can head on over to some other stuff. I'll figure out a good time to talk about the crash a bit later. Oh, this is the last thing. It's just this weird, old, washed out entrance that now pretty much only mountain bikers use as a downhill. Whoa! Shit, okay. That needs to be cleared ASAP. Oh my God. Okay. Let's see why no one cleared that before then. God damn. That thing was heavy as hell. Okay, so these were the first ever illegal trails to be built. I don't think too many people use it anymore. God knows I haven't been over here in a long time. I work out at the other illegal trails, which are a bit further away, and have more room and more features out there. Whew, tick central. Anyway, this might be a decent time to talk about the crash. So, the crash happened just a little over 6 months ago. That kind of ruined everything for me. Just talking a bit more about the backstory and everything for it. It was at Bryce Bike Park in Virginia, and whoo-wee, these trails are not ridden much. I was riding what was gonna be the last lap anyway, which, last lap, except actually no, because I was thinking about going up and hitting the hooch drop at the very top, but I wanted to get a little bit more warmed up on pickleback first. Obviously that was the fatal mistake. Looking back, it felt like there were so many warning signs. It was raining, I got a flat, all of these things that should have made me stop, but it was our last day and I really wanted to keep going. And that would be my downfall. Here we go, a couple of old jumps here. It's just a tiny little loop. We're back at the start. And yeah, I apologize, by the way, for all these ums and ers. But, this is totally unscripted, from the heart type of thing. Plus, I'm mountain biking, so it's a little bit, whoa, got whipped in the face. A little bit hard to concentrate on talking, but, I wanted to get this out there. So, the crash happened. It's a little hard to tell for me what the deal with it was. I was tired at that point, and I wanted to clear that big step up. And I was so tired at that point that I couldn't handle the G-forces that were coming at me as I was going up the lip. And because you kind of need, it's super high speed step up, so you really got to push in and then pull up as you're coming off the lip. And unfortunately, I just didn't have the strength at that point in the day to do that. And I ended up getting bucked, going over the bars and landing perfectly on my head. There's like 1 or 2 freeze frames there where you can actually see my hands. some of the doctors were saying, you know, what happened to your hands? Like, generally, you know, if we're going to see something like this injury, we're also going to see, like, you know, both broken wrists and everything. And essentially what happened was, as I was going over the bars, my hands were so tired and they were still locked in that, like, grip position that they just kind of let go and rolled back and kind of almost did like a somersault thing as I crashed. And that's why somehow my wrists and hands didn't get hurt pretty much at all. Unfortunately, obviously my head and neck did. So, you know, my dad was riding with me, and was he the first? Yeah, he was the first person to get there. He was riding with me. He rides a bit slower than me, or at least he did at that point. And he got to me, and essentially he realized something was wrong. You know, we pretty much give each other thumbs up or thumbs down, depending on how we are. This jump is too old to really get Speed 4 anymore. And only ever will I give a thumbs down if something is really, really wrong. And when I gave the thumbs down and he said, you know, he knew something was up, didn't know exactly what, and he asked, "Are you okay?" And then I said no, which I don't think I've ever done. And that was how he knew that it was really, really bad. I saw a new kind of line thing that I wanted to check out over here. Looks old and washed out, but maybe it's something. Jeez, okay, never mind, I take it back. Anyway, so I said no. He realized, okay, something's really wrong. And at that point, someone on a neighboring trail had seen, you know, essentially a mushroom cloud of dust coming up, and came on over, realized what was happening, and immediately got the attention of the people on the chairlift. And, you know, it was pretty close to the top, so they were able to get their attention pretty quickly. And I just remember there's a tree over here. And thankfully they were able to send up EMS pretty rapidly. Or not EMS, sorry, mountain, whatever it's called, mountain first aid people. They came up there, they checked me out, they said, you know, clearly this is serious, this is like a high-speed head impact, we don't know the full extent to the injuries here, because, you know, they don't have a MRI machine and everything. So they suggested getting an ambulance to a local level 2 trauma center, which can deal with damn near everything bike injury related. There was a little drop and now we're gonna head out. And we got there, started to look at me, and did some tests, did a bunch of other stuff, came back into the room and said, you know, turns out you have a broken neck. And we are, that's one of the few things that we cannot treat here because we're not equipped for that. So they suggested pretty much the only real way to deal with this at this point was a life flight helicopter. So I got helicoptered out of there down to UVA, University of Virginia's hospital, which has a level 1 trauma care unit, and that is equipped to deal with, you know, anything under the sun that can happen. That break, I had a bit of road riding to do over some fairly high-speed trafficy streets, so I wanted to be able to pay a bit more attention to my surroundings. At any rate, got to UVA, that's what it's called. At that point, it's kind of a blur of all kinds of things. It was like literally something like 1:32 in the morning. Hadn't eaten since breakfast. Hadn't really orally intaken any fluids. Obviously, I had an IV bag going. But you know, my mouth is super dry and just everything's in a lot of pain. I was also jacked full of opioids and morphine, so that didn't help my lucidness. But essentially they did a bunch more testing, figured out that they estimated the impact at 40 miles an hour, which is kind of insane. Said essentially, yes, you have what's easiestly described as a broken neck. It's more like a chip of razor sharp bone had broken off, and was threatening my spinal cord, which is obviously not good. So by some miracle didn't need surgery, which is insane. But also started to sink in at that point that this was really serious, because pretty much every doctor that I talked to said, first of all, you're insanely lucky to be alive right now. Second of all, it's remarkable that you're not paralyzed. So that was the point that started to really sink in. Okay, this is starting to be genuinely really scary for me. I was sent to somewhere that's kind of like a step below the ICU. Stayed there for I think 3 days or something, and finally was able to get out of there, get back home. But that was the crash and the hospital stay. Real quick, I'll tell you about these trails before going into the aftermath of that, of the crash. So these trails are the super illegal trails that were built later than the other ones. Much more elevation gain, still not a lot, but you know, we work with what we got. Very feature packed, all that kind of stuff. Moving back into the crash, little while later, I went to like concussion therapy type of thing. I don't know exactly what it's called. Had more follow-ups, just all types of stuff. And finally, a couple months later, I was able to get back on the bike. And I wanted to really talk about that point, because for me, I've been mountain biking my entire life pretty much. I started when I was like 3. And I love it so much. It's what brings me joy. It's like, you know, my main hobby. So I pretty much always knew that I wanted to get back on the bike as soon as possible. With that being said, it was very scary. It was. After you have something like that, if you have a crash, and need to go under the knife, or have a crash and all the doctors tell you that it's a miracle you're alive, you start to realize that this is an extreme sport and shit can happen. For me, I got back on the bike riding road, moved on to riding like flat dirt stuff. And pretty much immediately, like, I knew, okay, this is still something that I love. This is still something that I want to do. And if anyone is in that position of not knowing whether or not they want to get back on the bike after a crash or anything, it's a deeply personal choice. That's the truth of it. There should be no shame if you don't, you know, and if you do, mad respect to you. But I would say if you're still undecided, I would get back on the bike just for a little bit, just like a ride or two maybe, and just see if it brings you that same amount of joy. And if it does, well, then it's probably something that you really love to do, and you should really consider continuing it. If it's not, and it feels like, you know, it didn't bring you that same enjoyment and everything, then maybe it's time to start looking at something else. So that was my early recovery journey. A bit later, I started to do some more serious trails out in Pisgah, North Carolina, and took it pretty easy there, but you know, it's still some serious trails out there, and just steadily grew a bit better and better, got back in shape. That's another thing that's really hard, is getting back in shape after that type of thing. And then recently I went out to Cherokee in North Carolina to race an enduro race that they have out there at Fire Mountain. And I'm definitely still not where I was. I would say 40% of that is I've lost skill, I've lost confidence, stuff like that, and about 60% of that is I've lost fitness. I can't keep up with what I used to do. By the time, you know, I get to the top of the mountain or something, I feel so winded that I can't go as fast down the mountain. And that's been hard, but just trying to slowly get back into it is the best thing I can do at this point. But you know, that's about the story of my crash, and I guess we can get into some more riding. I know this is very talk heavy and not very riding heavy, but I just wanted to make a video just to chat for a bit about all this type of stuff and also show off some of my local trails. So here we go. This is the line. I built it myself, call it Fishtail. It starts out with a big old hip into a fishtail section, berm, hip berm. Whew. There we go. Moto whoops, all types of stuff in there. It's so hard to talk and keep up with what I'm riding at the same time, since those features are so packed together. But that was called Fishtail. That was the kind of original line that I made myself. And then recently I finished working on another line called Destination Unknown. I'll show you that in a minute. Okay, so Destination Unknown starts just past Fishtail. That's Fishtail, and you'll see where we drop into Destination Unknown. Has more just weird stuff and a trail gap and a big ass berm and stuff. Entrance still needs to be ridden in. Of that little thing, jump into a berm, step down, big jump, big old berm, and then out. I figure we'll ride both of those lines one more time to give you a bit of a better sense of how they work and what they are. Alrighty, Fishtail. You need a bit of speed to clear that first berm, or not berm, hip. So you come up here, drop in, Fishtail, hip, berm, moto whoops, and then kind of slappy berm to finish you out. So obviously super short, but with the amount of elevation and everything that I had to work with, I packed as many features as I possibly could into that. And now, destination unknown. Alrighty. Both those are my trails, and obviously I'm gonna be a bit biased, but I enjoy them. I guess next we can do the drop. This is the biggest feature out here. It's a pretty mid-sized drop. If you send it fairly deep, like I'm gonna, I think it's probably about 6 feet or so. There we go, send that really deep. Then you have a little bit of a berm over here. Nothing too crazy. We'll get to going that way later. Okay. This is actually my first time trying this little step up, so we'll see how it goes. I have literally no idea how this thing works. I built it this morning. So we'll see how it goes. Did I? God damn it, that's gonna be annoying. Oh, that sucks. Okay, well, I overshot the entire landing, which is just grand, because it means I get to move the whole goddamn thing. Super annoying when you build something and it ends up not working. Okay, so we will do that step up into the outer loop, which is the long, pretty fun downhill loop. Not a ton of features, but you know, pretty fun. Yep, that landing needs to be completely moved. Oh, this is like a super fresh thing. This really outer loop is just a fun, for around here, fairly long descent. Starts off pretty flat, goes into a weird little huck to flat thing. And then there's a rock jump, and then it's gets steeper downhill from there. Here comes the huck. Oh yeah, here's the little, there's like a little pallet jump thing. And then there's that rock thing. And then just some other fairly chill stuff. This is a fun little thing. It's kind of like just a long, this little bar thing here. And that's more or less all of the trails. Is it anything crazy? No. Is it something that keeps me busy? building new stuff out here in the summer? Yep. Is it fun to be able to ride out your door and have some actually decent little bit of elevation gain and mileage? Absolutely. Am I annoyed by that damn step up that ended up not working? Oh. Am I gonna fix it? Yes. That's just about everything, I think. Just wanted to hop on, cruise around my local trails, show them off, show off what I've built, show off what other people have built, and talk to you just a little about some random stuff from, you know, what did we cover? GoPro mount, Apple Watch, the trails themselves, and then obviously the crash in a bit more detail and the recovery process for that. Anyway, I guess I'll work on building up that step up a bit more. Ugh. Well, at any rate, I think that's going to be everything. And I think this is probably going to be released before the race footage. And I will warn you, the race footage, it's very annoying. I need to get a new GoPro because cut out some parts, didn't record others, put itself in time-lapse mode for some reason, for some of it. So I need to figure out what's usable footage and then edit all of that out, because it is, even with all that, a fair amount of editing that I need to do. Anyway, that'll probably be the next video. So until then, keep on riding, and I'm going to try to finish building this step up.